Commander Marcus stood on the bridge of the massive warship, staring at the glowing blue planet on his screen. Such a small world so far from the center of the galaxy. His scaled fingers tapped against the control panel as he reviewed the data one more time. "Sir, all teams are ready for deployment," Lieutenant Vale said, standing at attention beside him. Her uniform was crisp, her posture perfect. She had served with Marcus for 20 years, and never once had they failed a mission. Marcus nodded slowly. This would be conquest number 48 for him. 48 worlds brought into the collective. 48 civilizations that now serve the Empire. Earth would be no different. What do we know about them? Marcus asked, though he had read the reports a dozen times already. Vale pulled up the information on the main display. The humans are a young species, sir. They have only just reached their own moon. Their weapons are primitive, chemical explosives and nuclear devices. Their planet is divided into hundreds of separate governments that fight among themselves. Military strength? Minimal, sir. They have soldiers but nothing compared to our forces. Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours. The analysis team estimates 72 hours for complete planetary surrender once we make contact. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. 72 hours. 3 days to add another world to the Empire. The Council would be pleased. "How many soldiers are we sending in the first wave?" he asked. 500, sir. Advanced teams will land at 20 different locations across the planet. Remote areas away from major cities. They will establish secure positions, analyze local resistance capabilities, and prepare for the main invasion force. It was a standard approach. The collective had used this strategy on every world they conquered. Send in scouts first. Let them map the territory and identify threats. Then bring in the overwhelming force to crush any resistance before it could organize. Deploy them, Marcus ordered. Vale gave the command, and within minutes the drop ships were launching from the warship's hangar bay. Marcus watched them descend toward Earth like falling stars, their heat shields glowing as they entered the atmosphere. The first reports came in quickly. Team Alpha had landed in a dense forest region. Team Beta touched down in a mountain range. Team Gamma secured a position near a large body of water. One by one, all 20 teams confirmed successful landing. Marcus felt the familiar satisfaction of a mission going according to plan. He retired to his quarters, confident that by morning, they would have complete intelligence on this primitive world. The next day brought more routine reports. The teams had encountered a few humans, mostly rural populations, farmers and villagers. There had been no resistance. Some humans ran away. Others simply stared at the alien soldiers with fear and confusion. No military response yet, Vale reported during the morning briefing. It appears the human governments have not even detected our presence. Excellent, Marcus said. Maintain observation protocols. I want a full tactical assessment before we proceed with the main invasion. The second day was equally uneventful. The advanced teams continued their surveillance. They cataloged human settlements, transportation networks, and communication systems. Everything pointed to an easy conquest. Then on the third day something changed. Marcus was reviewing supply manifests when Vale rushed onto the bridge, her face tense with concern. "Sir, we have lost contact with Team Alpha." Marcus looked up sharply. "Equipment malfunction?" "Unknown, sir. They missed their scheduled report. All attempts to reach them have failed." A small knot of worry formed in Marcus's stomach, but he pushed it aside. Equipment failures happened, especially on primitive worlds with unusual atmospheric conditions. "Keep trying. Alert me when contact is re-established." But contact was not re-established. An hour later, Team Beta went silent. Then Team Gamma. Then Team Delta. By nightfall, all 500 soldiers had stopped transmitting. Marcus stood on the bridge, staring at the communications panel that showed nothing but static. 20 landing sites. 500 elite soldiers. Complete silence. "This is impossible," Vale whispered beside him. There were no distress signals. No reports of combat. No automated emergency beacons. They just stopped. Marcus had conquered 47 worlds. He had faced armies with advanced weapons. He had battled species with natural armor and incredible strength. But never, not once in his entire military career, had he simply lost contact with an entire advance force. "Prepare a search and rescue mission," he said quietly. 2,000 trackers. Heavy equipment. I want to know what happened to my soldiers." Vale hesitated. "Sir, what do you think we are facing down there?" Marcus looked at Earth on the display, that peaceful blue and green world spinning silently in the void. For the first time in decades, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Fear. Captain Cole checked his equipment one final time before boarding the transport ship. 2,000 soldiers stood ready behind him, the best trackers in the collective military. Their mission was simple: find the missing advanced teams and determine what had happened to them. "Stay sharp down there," Lieutenant Vale told him before departure. "We have no idea what you are walking into." Cole nodded. He had led rescue missions before. Sometimes soldiers got lost. Sometimes equipment failed. Sometimes local wildlife proved more dangerous than expected. But 500 soldiers disappearing without a single distress call? That was new. The transport ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, heading for the last known positions of the missing teams. Cole's ship landed in a forest clearing where Team Alpha had set up their base camp 3 days earlier. The moment the door opened, Cole knew something was wrong. The camp was there. Tents still standing. Equipment scattered around. Weapons lying on the ground, their power cells still charged. But no soldiers. No bodies. No blood. No signs of battle. "Spread out," Cole ordered. "Search the area. Look for anything that tells us what happened here." His soldiers moved through the camp carefully, scanning for clues. They found ration packs half-eaten. A communications device still recording static. A helmet sitting on a log as if someone had just taken it off for a moment. "Sir, over here," one of his soldiers called out. Cole walked over to where Private Reed stood pointing at the ground. There were tracks, boot prints from their soldiers leading away from the camp into the forest. But they did not look like combat movements. They looked casual, as if the soldiers had simply walked away. "Follow the trail," Cole ordered. They moved into the forest, following the tracks for nearly an hour. The trail wound between trees, crossed a small stream and then simply stopped. The boot prints ended in the middle of a clearing. Nothing beyond them. No signs of struggle. No evidence of what had happened next. "This makes no sense," Reed muttered. Similar reports came in from the other search teams throughout the day. Abandoned camps. Missing soldiers. Equipment left behind. But no bodies. No answers. That night, Cole set up a defensive perimeter around their landing site. He posted guards at every approach. He had motion sensors active in a wide circle. Nothing would catch them by surprise. At 2 in the morning, the motion sensors triggered. "Movement, northwest quadrant," the watch officer reported. "Multiple contacts approaching." Cole grabbed his weapon and ran to the perimeter. Through his night vision scope, he could see figures moving between the trees. Humans. Maybe a dozen of them. They were not wearing uniforms. They looked like ordinary civilians, farmers maybe, or villagers. "Hold your fire," Cole commanded. "Let them approach. We will try to communicate." But the humans did not come closer. They stopped at the edge of the sensor range, just standing there in the darkness. Watching. Then they disappeared. Cole blinked. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. The motion sensors showed nothing. "Where did they go?" Reed asked, his voice tight with tension. Before Cole could answer, screams erupted from the south side of the perimeter. He spun around to see 3 of his guards being dragged into the forest. He fired his weapon, but the figures were already gone, vanishing into the shadows with impossible speed. "Defensive formation. Now!" Cole shouted. His soldiers formed a tight circle, weapons pointing outward. But nothing attacked. The forest was silent again. Completely silent. No insect sounds. No wind. Just oppressive, waiting silence. When dawn finally came, Cole counted his soldiers. 12 were missing. 12 trained warriors had vanished during a single night despite all their precautions and technology. He tried to contact the other search teams. Half of them did not respond. The ones that did reported similar experiences. Strange encounters, soldiers disappearing, humans who seemed to melt into the landscape. "We need to evacuate," Reed said, his hands shaking slightly. "Sir, whatever is happening here, we are not prepared for it." Cole wanted to disagree, but he could not. In 20 years of military service, he had never felt hunted before. That was what this felt like. They were not the hunters here. They were the prey. He sent one final transmission back to Commander Marcus on the warship. "The humans are not what we expected. They know this terrain better than we can imagine. They strike without warning and disappear like ghosts. We cannot find the original teams. We are losing soldiers. Requesting immediate extraction." The transmission was brief and panicked, so unlike his usual professional reports. But Cole did not care about protocol anymore. He just wanted to get off this planet alive. Of the 2,000 soldiers sent down to search for the missing advanced teams, only 273 made it back to the extraction points. The rest simply vanished into Earth's forests, mountains and cities, never to be seen again. Commander Marcus sat alone in his quarters, surrounded by screens displaying information about Earth. Sleep had become impossible. In 3 weeks, he had lost nearly 3,000 soldiers to a planet that was supposed to surrender in 3 days. The War Council was demanding answers, and Marcus had none to give them. He began with the basics, pulling up everything the collective had gathered about human civilization. At first glance it seemed ordinary enough. Cities, roads, farms, schools. A typical developing world. But as Marcus dug deeper, patterns began to emerge that made his skin crawl. The first thing he noticed was their history files. Humans kept detailed records of their past, and those records were filled with war. Not occasional conflicts like most species experienced, but constant, unending warfare. Marcus scrolled through the timeline, his eyes widening with each passing century. Wars over territory. Wars over resources. Wars over beliefs. Wars over insults. The humans had been fighting each other for 10,000 years without pause. They had developed weapons specifically designed to kill other humans, refined those weapons over generations and taught their children how to use them. Lieutenant Vale, Marcus called over the communication system. Come to my quarters. I need you to see this. Vale arrived within minutes, and Marcus showed her what he had found. Together they watched archived human videos, something called documentaries that explained Earth's military history. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 soldiers held off an army of thousands. The Siege of Stalingrad, where humans fought each other building by building in frozen ruins. The tunnels of Vietnam, where farmers defeated the most technologically advanced military of their time. They glorify resistance, Vale said quietly, watching a human film about a rebellion against an empire. Look at their entertainment. Their stories. It is all about fighting back against impossible odds. Marcus pulled up more files. Human literature was filled with tales of last stands and heroic defeats. Their music contained songs about never surrendering. Even their children's stories featured characters who refused to give up no matter how hopeless the situation became. This is not normal, Marcus said. Most species develop past their aggressive phase. They learn cooperation, peace, stability. But humans? He gestured at the screens. They have reached the stars while still thinking like warriors. Vale accessed the biological data. Sir, look at this. Their planet is classified as a high-gravity world. The gravity is 30% higher than our home world. Marcus felt a chill run through him. High-gravity worlds produced physically stronger species. It meant every human down there was naturally more powerful than his soldiers. There is more, Vale continued, reading the report. Humans evolved as what they call persistence hunters. They would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies are designed for endurance. That explained how human fighters could run for so long without tiring. How they could pursue his soldiers through difficult terrain without stopping. They were literally built for the chase. Marcus found dietary information next. They are omnivores, he said, reading aloud. They can eat almost anything organic. Plants, meat, fungi. They can survive in nearly any environment because they can consume whatever food is available. His soldiers needed specific rations, carefully balanced nutrients. If supply lines were cut, they would starve within days. But humans? They could eat local plants and animals and keep fighting indefinitely. The more Marcus learned, the worse it became. Humans had something in their biology called an adrenal response. When threatened, their bodies released natural chemicals that suppressed pain, increased strength, and sharpened their senses. They could fight through injuries that would incapacitate other species. Look at this phrase, Vale said, pointing to a human quote displayed on the screen. We shall never surrender. Even if this island were subjugated and starving, our empire beyond the seas would carry on the struggle until the new world steps forth to the rescue of the old. What does that mean? Marcus asked. It means they would rather die than submit. All of them. It is not just their soldiers who think this way. It is their entire culture. Marcus found more quotes. Live free or die. Give me liberty or give me death. I regret that I have but one life to give for my country. Every language on Earth had similar phrases. Humans of every culture, every nation, every background shared this same fundamental belief. Freedom was worth dying for. No wonder we cannot hold territory, Marcus said slowly. We are not fighting an army. We are fighting an entire species that has been training for war since they lived in caves. Vale pulled up footage from the occupation zones. Humans who looked like ordinary civilians carrying hidden weapons. Children running messages between resistance groups. Elderly humans building explosives in their homes. Teachers who became fighters at night and returned to their classrooms by morning. They do not have soldiers and civilians, Vale said. They are all soldiers. Every single one of them. Marcus found a human military manual and read through it. The section on guerrilla warfare was extensive, detailed, and terrifying. It explained how a weaker force could defeat a stronger one through ambush, sabotage, and by making occupation too costly to maintain. The manual was hundreds of years old, but the tactics it described were exactly what the humans were using against them now. They have been preparing for this, Marcus realized. Not for us specifically but for any invader. Their entire history has been preparing them to resist occupation. He compiled everything into a report, the biological data, the historical patterns, the cultural analysis. Then he sent it directly to the War Council with a single recommendation highlighted in red. Withdraw all forces immediately. Earth cannot be conquered. General Blake's holographic image flickered above the conference table, his expression stern and unyielding. Behind him, the other members of the War Council sat in judgment of Commander Marcus and his failed operation. Commander Marcus, Blake said coldly, you have lost 3,000 soldiers to a primitive world armed with chemical weapons and crude explosives. This is unacceptable. The Council has reviewed your report and finds your conclusions to be the result of cowardice, not analysis. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest but kept his voice level. General, with respect, the humans are not what our initial assessment suggested. They are primitives, Blake interrupted. And you allowed primitives to embarrass the collective. We are sending the full invasion force. 30,000 soldiers with heavy armor, air support, and orbital bombardment capability. You will crush this resistance within 1 month, or you will be removed from command. The hologram disappeared, leaving Marcus staring at the empty space. Lieutenant Vale stood beside him, her face pale. They do not understand, she whispered. No, Marcus agreed. But they will. The invasion began 3 days later. 30,000 soldiers descended from the sky in waves of drop ships. Heavy walkers stomped through city streets. Fighter craft screamed overhead. Orbital cannons fired precision strikes at military installations. For the first week, it looked like the War Council had been right. Human armies crumbled before the assault. Their tanks were destroyed by plasma fire. Their jets were shot down by superior technology. Capital cities fell one after another, and the collective flag was raised over government buildings across the planet. Marcus watched the reports with growing unease. It was too easy. The human military was fighting, yes, but not with the ferocity he had expected. It felt like they were delaying rather than defending, buying time rather than holding ground. On the 8th day, the occupation truly began, and Marcus understood what the humans had been preparing for. The first supply convoy was hit at dawn. 20 transport trucks carrying food and ammunition for the soldiers occupying New York simply exploded on a highway. The guards never saw the attack coming. No survivors. In London, a patrol of 15 soldiers entered a seemingly abandoned building to clear it. None of them came out. When reinforcements arrived, they found the building empty except for 15 sets of armor and weapons, neatly stacked in the center of the room. In Tokyo, human fighters struck the occupation headquarters at night using captured plasma rifles. They killed 30 soldiers, destroyed communication equipment, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The pattern repeated across every occupied city. During the day, humans appeared cooperative, going about their business, avoiding eye contact with soldiers, seeming defeated. But at night, those same streets became killing grounds. They are using our own weapons against us, Vale reported during the morning briefing, 2 weeks into the occupation. Intelligence suggests they are reverse engineering our technology. Some resistance groups now have functioning plasma rifles and even personal shields. Marcus was not surprised. He had read about human adaptability. Their capacity to learn and innovate under pressure was documented throughout their history. What shocked him was the speed. They were mastering alien technology in days, not months. The casualty reports grew worse each day. Soldiers disappeared from their posts. Patrols were ambushed. Occupied buildings were bombed. The humans used tactics that no military academy taught. Fighting without honor, without rules, without mercy. They poisoned food supplies. They sabotaged equipment. They attacked medical facilities and supply depots. Sir, we just received a report from Captain Davis in Chicago, a communications officer said. His unit engaged a group of resistance fighters. One of the humans took 4 direct hits from plasma rifles and continued fighting for 18 more minutes before collapsing. That is impossible, Vale said. 4 plasma hits should kill instantly. Marcus pulled up the medical analysis. The human had injected himself with something, a substance his body naturally produced called adrenaline, combined with artificial stimulants. His pain receptors had been chemically suppressed, allowing him to fight through injuries that should have been immediately fatal. They are dosing themselves with combat drugs, Marcus said quietly. Their own biology produces some of it. They are enhancing what nature already gave them. But the most disturbing reports came from occupied residential zones. The resistance was not just soldiers. It was everyone. In Paris, an elderly woman in her 70s detonated explosives hidden in her home, killing herself and 12 occupation soldiers. In Mumbai, children no older than 10 ran messages between resistance cells, moving through the city with knowledge of paths and tunnels that no map showed. In Mexico City, a schoolteacher built improvised explosive devices in her classroom at night and taught students during the day. Every human is a potential combatant, Vale said, reading through the intelligence reports. We cannot tell who is dangerous and who is not because any of them might be. Marcus reviewed the numbers after 4 months of occupation. The initial invasion force of 30,000 had been reduced to 14,000. 16,000 soldiers dead, missing or too wounded to fight. And they controlled nothing. The cities they occupied were only theirs during daylight. At night they belonged to the humans. The supply situation was becoming critical. Every convoy needed heavy escort. Every supply depot needed constant guard. The humans were bleeding them slowly, making every day of occupation more expensive than the last. General Blake's next transmission was less confident than before. Commander, the Council is concerned about the casualty rate. You were promised 1 month. It has been 4. What is your assessment? Marcus looked directly at the hologram. General, we cannot win this war. Not because their military is stronger than ours, but because there is no difference between their military and their population. Every human down there would rather die than surrender. We can destroy their armies. We can occupy their cities. But we cannot make them stop fighting. Blake's face hardened. You have 2 more months, Commander. Show results or face court-martial. When the transmission ended, Vale turned to Marcus. What do we do, sir? Marcus looked at the casualty reports, the supply problems, the endless stream of attacks that never stopped. He thought about the human quote he had found during his research. We will fight them on the beaches, in the streets, in the hills. We will never surrender. They had meant it. Every word. We prepare to evacuate, Marcus said quietly, because this planet cannot be held. The evacuation order came on a cold morning in the 6th month of occupation. Commander Marcus stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the last transport ships rise from Earth's surface. Of the 30,000 soldiers sent to conquer the planet, only 8,000 were returning. The rest were dead, captured, or simply missing, swallowed by a world that refused to be conquered. Lieutenant Vale approached with a data tablet. Final casualty count is confirmed, sir. 22,000 lost. It is the worst military defeat in collective history. Marcus took the tablet but did not look at it. He had seen enough numbers. Instead, he watched Earth slowly shrinking on the display screen. That beautiful blue world had broken his career, his reputation, and his understanding of warfare itself. Begin compilation of the final report, Marcus ordered. I want everything documented. Every engagement. Every tactical analysis. Every mistake we made. For 3 days, Marcus worked on the report while the warship traveled away from Earth. He included the biological data showing humans were persistence hunters evolved on a high-gravity death world. He documented their 10,000 years of continuous warfare. He analyzed their cultural obsession with resistance and freedom. He explained how their entire population functioned as a military force. But the core of his report was simpler and more terrifying than all the data combined. Species assessment, humanity. Threat level, existential. He wrote, humans do not fight because they believe they can win. They fight because surrender is not part of their nature. You cannot negotiate with them because they would rather die than accept terms. You cannot occupy their world because every human becomes a soldier the moment you try. You cannot wait them out because their endurance exceeds any reasonable timeline for occupation. Marcus paused, considering his next words carefully. Then he continued, recommendation, immediate quarantine of the Sol system. Establish exclusion zone. Post-warning beacons. Under no circumstances should any collective vessel approach Earth again. He attached combat footage to the report, Video of human fighters continuing to attack even after sustaining mortal wounds, of elderly civilians constructing explosives, of children running through gunfire to deliver messages. He included intercepted human communications that showed not despair at their losses, but growing confidence that they could win. The most chilling attachment was a broadcast the humans had sent on all frequencies as the collective forces evacuated. Marcus played it one more time before submitting his report. A human voice, speaking in accented but clear collective standard language. "You came to our world. You thought we would surrender. You were wrong. We know about you now. We know you are out there among the stars. And we want you to know something. We are coming. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But we are coming. You showed us the galaxy. That was your first mistake. You left before finishing what you started. That was your second." Marcus felt a chill listening to those words. It was not an empty threat. Down on Earth's surface, in hidden facilities and captured bases, humans were already taking apart collective technology. They were learning, studying, building. He submitted his report to the War Council with a priority flag. 2 days later, General Blake's hologram appeared in his ready room, and for the first time, the general looked shaken. "The Council has reviewed your report," Blake said quietly. "We are implementing your recommendations. The Sol system is now under permanent quarantine. We are posting warning beacons at every approach vector." "It may not be enough," Marcus said. "The humans have our technology now. They have our star charts. They know where we are." Blake nodded slowly. "The Council is aware. We are preparing defensive measures." "But Marcus..." The general hesitated. "Do you truly believe they will come for us?" Marcus thought about everything he had seen. The human soldiers who fought through impossible injuries. The civilians who became warriors overnight. The culture that celebrated resistance against overwhelming odds. The species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. "Yes," Marcus said simply. "They will come." The transmission ended and Marcus was alone again. He walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was already preparing. Already building. Already planning. The collective had wanted to add one more world to their empire. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand. They had shown a warrior species that they were not alone in the universe. Worse, they had given those warriors a reason to reach the stars. Revenge, curiosity, or perhaps just the human need to explore and conquer. On Earth's surface, in a hidden military facility, General Patterson stood before a captured alien starship. Human engineers swarmed over it, taking measurements, making notes, beginning the long process of understanding its systems. "How long until we can replicate their faster-than-light drive?" Patterson asked his chief scientist. 5 years, maybe 10, the scientist replied. "It is incredibly complex technology." Patterson nodded. "Make it 5. I want to send a clear message to the aliens who invaded our world." "What message, sir?" Patterson looked at the starship, then at the star charts they had recovered from captured alien computers. Charts that showed hundreds of worlds, thousands of systems, an entire galaxy waiting to be explored. "That humanity does not forget," Patterson said quietly. "And we do not forgive. They came to Earth thinking we were weak. We are going to show them what humans are really capable of when someone threatens our home." In orbit around Earth, the last collective observation satellite recorded one final image before its power cell died. It showed lights appearing across Earth's surface, not the lights of cities, but the bright flares of industrial facilities working day and night. Factories, research centers, shipyards. The humans were building something. Building toward something. And the galaxy would never be the same. Far away, on the collective homeworld, Commander Marcus received one final message from his intelligence network before it was shut down. The message contained a single image. A human spacecraft design, still theoretical but clearly based on captured collective technology. Below the image, someone had written a human phrase in their own language. Marcus had to use a translator to read it. "We are coming for you." He deleted the message, but the words stayed with him. They would stay with him for the rest of his life. The collective had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. They had found something far more dangerous. A species that refused to surrender, that learned from every defeat, and that never ever forgot an insult. Humanity had been given the stars as a threat. They had taken it as an invitation. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the first human warship was already being built.